Hello, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to see if we can salvage a 5 amp hour Milwaukee battery that has the dreaded 8 blinks of death. So we're going to start out, we're on a rubber mat, and we're going to take all the screws out. So let's get these out here. Okay, get our screws out. Now you want to make sure you have your screws good and separated, because there's power in this thing. So let's get that out. Everything looks okay there. Just kind of inspect everything here. Okay, so for our meter today, we're going to play around with the Simpson 360. I kind of like this meter, especially for shooting videos, because the screen is lit red on it, and I don't have to play around as much with trying to remove glare and everything, and even if it's blurry over here, you can still kind of read it. So we're going to rock with the Simpson 360, and we're just going to run down through the cells on this. We got 4. 4.1, 3.1, 3.6, 3.7. So it could be that this 3.1 set is low enough that this battery is going to be unhappy that it doesn't see balanced enough cells. So the way these work, I believe, I don't have any documentation. I don't think Milwaukee sells documentation on how their batteries work. But I think what it's doing is it's comparing each bank. So here you have one bank of cells, another bank, another bank, another bank. There's 5 banks, and they're in series parallel. You can see this is the one by itself, and these are all jumpered. If we turn it 180 degrees, you see the exact same thing. This is the one. In and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and there. So series parallel setup, and we want to just look at everything here, and I don't see any real signs of batteries swelling or leaking or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to verify, I think it was the middle set. 3.1 is the middle set. So I'm going to take a Sharpie here, and I'm going to mark which ones were low, just so I know in future, if I end up having to get into this thing again, that I know these cells were low. Now what can happen with this is you can discharge them kind of quickly, or they can sit and one of the cells will wander, get out of tolerance, and I think this circuit's just looking to see, are we all relatively close, and if they are, we're happy. But we have about a volt difference, if I remember right. So let's see here, 4.1 to 3.1, so that's about a volt, and I think that's enough to throw the board off. So our first try here is going to be to charge the center cells. Now we do have 3.7, 3.6, and 3.7. So 4.1, 4.1. So everything on this end is a little bit low, but I think these are probably within tolerance. This volt lower is probably a little too far. So now, to help us with that, we're going to bring in our M18 powered power supply right here, and we're going to set this to about 4.1 volts, and we're going to just charge on these. Now you do have to make sure you're on this the right polarity wise. So here is the positive side of the cell we want to charge, and here is the negative side of the cell we want to charge. So this is positive, this is negative. It's very important. If we were charging this cell, we would want positive here and negative here. So very important. You don't want to be willy-nilly with that. You get yourself in trouble. So there we go. We'll clip on there, and we'll clip on there. And our power supply, I wish I could get this in frame better, kind of verifies our voltage here. Maybe I could do something here. Yeah, sure, that'll work. So our power supply kind of verifies our voltage, 3.12. And what we'll want to do is go to voltage set, and that is way high. Let's get that turned down. We'll go 4.0. 4.0. Okay, there we go. Our current is set at 1.1. I think I'm okay with that. Let's see what it does taking that 1.1. So it takes the full 1.1. You can see that. And this is kind of going to be the waiting game, as it were. We're going to see if it comes up. We can check our voltage as we go here. See if it's wanting to climb, which it is. You can see right there. It's coming up a little. The voltage at the pack is always going to be lower than the charger. I think that's because of the loss in the leads, but that's okay. So we're going to let that go and just come back to it in a while. You can't really be antsy when you do this, especially when you first throw power at it. I like to keep the current low. That's why we have a current limiting power supply. We're around the 1 amp. We're going to let it sit there for a little bit. We don't want to get too crazy. It's taking all of the current. If that current starts dropping off, then we can increase the current to get a better charge out of it, because we don't really want to go above our 4-volt mark. But for now, the voltage is going to have to climb, and at some point we'll have to increase the current to get more voltage into it. It's a whole Ohm's law thing. But anyway, we're going to let this sit and charge a little bit, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so we've had it on a little bit here. You can see the voltage is creeped up, and you just want to check, make sure nothing's getting hot. This is obviously not the angles you want to be looking at the side, but you get the idea. You could also do this with a infrared gun, but the thermal imager does make things handy, and we have one here, so we might as well use it. Now, since we've come up in voltage a little bit, I think what we're going to do is we're going to throw a little bit more current at it. Let's go up to 1.5 amps, and you'll see the voltage come up with it. We're getting more wattage into it. And that's just going to continue to rise. I think what I want to do is get it to at least 3.8. And then we'll throw it on the charger, because the charger is what resets our blinking lights here. It seems like the charger's interaction is what resets everything. The charger pings out, and whatever brains are in this thing say whether it's in a happy state or not. So right now it is always going to say it's unhappy whether you hit the indicator button or not. And I'm not 100% sure, but I had one of these batteries lock out once completely, even after we replaced cells, and it may have been because I bumped that button. So I don't want to get too crazy here. I would suggest against hitting that. I did it by accident with cells removed when I was replacing bad cells in a pack, and that may have had a bad effect on things because the cells weren't even there. So just for what it's worth on that. You always want to be careful with all this stuff. We're on a rubber mat. We're monitoring everything. I am not going to walk away from this. I have a fire extinguisher nearby. All of those types of things. We've taken the precautions. So always be careful with this stuff. Okay, so we've had things on for a little while now. We've creeped up the amperage to 3 amps. Now the chargers, the Milwaukee chargers, will put out 4 amps. The max for this charger is 5, so we're within everything's safety zone. We also bumped the voltage up to 4.2, and you can see we're up to 3.86. Let's verify that with our Simpson 360. We are a little low out here from that, but that's okay. If we turn this off, let's compare voltages now. About the same. So that's 3.62. It's 3.67. And that is 3.73. So a little bit more charging. And we'll have this, we'll have these 3 cells sets at this end about at the same voltage, and I'd be willing to try to put it on the charger and see if it comes back. Okay, and we're back. Some time has passed. Let's check out what we got here. So we're up around 4 volts. Let's turn this off. And we're hanging at 3.7. Let's see if the Simpson 360 agrees. Let's see what we got here. 3.8. Pretty good. See what we got here. 3.67. So now the cell that we were charging is right in the middle of all of those. So let's see if this thing will charge now. And let's get this thing turned off. Out of the way. Disconnected. And I'll be right back with the charger. I'm also going to put this thing back in its case. Just like that. We'll get some screws in this and we will try it on the charger. Okay, one thing to note, which I say many times in the channel, when you're doing screws in plastic, turn them backwards till you feel them grab, just like that, and then you can run your screws in just like that. This tip is dying a slow painful death here. I don't know if you can see, it's all twisted up. I really need to replace it. But when you run your screws backwards like this, what you're doing is you're setting it in, heard that pop? You're setting it in the tapped holes in the plastic, and then you're not stripping anything out. Because when you run screws in the plastic, you cut new threads every time, and that'll strip your plastic out. So by doing that, you turn it till you feel it pop. You actually are saving your workpiece. And then you should get a new tip for your driver so you don't strip the screws out. Okay, and like I said before, these batteries, even if you float one, they still say there's something wrong with them. So let's see. We have our charger plugged in. Let's see. It still says it's green, so it still says it has a problem. So let's see if we got to float the voltage in the other cells and see if we can get this to work. Okay, now interesting thing here. We do have 3 bars here, so maybe it's just that some of these cells are topped off, that it doesn't realize that the others are down. That's interesting. Let me charge on the others and we'll see. So I'm guessing that this thing realizes that we have 3 sets of cells that are almost fully charged, and that might be enough to satisfy it. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use this battery on our power supply for a little while and run it down just a little bit, maybe run it down to 2 bars, and we'll see if we can get it to charge then. It just might be because some of these cells are actually at full charge. So a little bit more playing around here, but I think we're getting close. So I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I decided to throw our battery on the M18 fan that we're trying out here in the shop. figure that, give it a good load. We'll get it down to 2 bars and then we'll try and charge it from there. Okay, we're back. We had this battery on a load for a little bit. It's still 3 bars, but we had a load on it. Let's see if it'll take a charge now. Now it looks like it'll take a charge. We're going to let this thing charge up, see if we get a full charge, and we'll pop it open and see what the cells look like then, see how balanced everything is. So we'll be back in a few. Okay, we have updates. We have 3 bars and a flashing green light. Now the flashing green light on this charger indicates that it's not fully charged. I'm going to look this up a little bit and see if, because it's clearly not charging anymore, I don't think. You could hear it kind of squealing while it was charging. Either it's going to a lower current charge to finish, or we've gotten to the max charge of this thing. Let me look this up and see what it says. Okay, so the flashing green light means maintenance charging, and I think what this is going to do is it is going to slowly balance these cells. So if you ever have a battery that's flashing green, I'm speculating here, let's see, I'm going to let this go, and if it's flashing green, that means that the charger itself is figuring out how much power to send to the odd cells out, and hopefully it will balance everything. We will see. If I'm right, the charger will balance the pack, and if it's flashing green, you should let it go because you have an imbalance voltage in your cells. Let's see if that's true. Okay, so I was curious. I lifted the pack off and I put it back on, and it goes to full green. Now I'm going to suspect, yes, it's still not balanced. So let's take it back apart and see what our voltages are. One of the fun things about taking all this stuff apart and working on it is to learn about how it works. You don't really know how it works and what it does until you get into it. So let's see if I'm suspecting correctly. I think we're going to see, let's fire up the old 360 here. I think we're going to see an imbalance here on 2 cells. So it'll probably be 4.1, 4.1, that's good, 3.8, 3.7, and 3.8. So they're still sagging, so let's see if we can bring the voltage in those 3 up. Now what we can do is we could go series on all of these. We want to go positive here, and we want to turn off our meter or our power supply, and then this is the last set. So we have 11.26 volts there. Now we're going to want to have 12 volts at this, so we're going to set our voltage. Let's get that in frame. So we're going to set our voltage on this so that we have 12 volts. Let's go over here, crank that up to 12, and let's turn this on. Let's see what it does for taking current. Now we should be charging 2/3 of this pack this way, and we'll let that go a little bit, and we will also be checking with our thermal infrared camera to see if we have any thermal issues with anything. And let me take an image of the battery pack. Okay, so here's our battery pack. I don't know if you can see that or not. Maybe? Yes? No? Perhaps? There we go. You can see none of it is actually hot at all. It's all the same temperature. There we go, if I get that on the right angle. You can see here's our cells that we're charging right here, and none of it is remotely warm. So that's good. That's kind of what we want to see. We're just going to keep going with that, and we'll see if we can get this voltage up. Now, we have all 4 bars here, so that's telling me that it is indeed a low voltage issue. We just need to balance it, and that appears to be an issue we had with the M12 battery. Seems to be an issue that comes into these M18s. After some time, you need to balance them. So we'll take some time here and we'll balance the pack, and we'll go from there. So while we're charging here, I'm just checking what our voltages are. You can see we got 3.93 there. The center cell set 3.8 and 3.93 here. 9293, it's fluctuating. So I'm going to monitor that, and what I want to do is at least get something to that 4 voltish range, sitting comfortably, just sitting. And what we'll do then is maybe we'll individually charge a set if a set's still low. Either way, we're going to try and get everything in here to 4.1 volts, and then we'll see what we get. Okay, we're back. So let's see where we're at. We've charged a little bit. We are at, with the charger on, 4.16. So let's turn the charger off. We have 4.12, 3.95, and 4.11. So I am going to reconfigure here, and we're going to go just to the middle cell here. We're going to turn our voltage down right now so we don't forget. Take that to 4.3. We're going to clip on here, and we are going to clip on here. Let's see, 3.8. Let's start charging. So it immediately floated up to 4.3 volts, and we'll let that charge a little bit at this and wait for the current to start dropping, and we'll see what we got. And we're back. So we now have 4 lights on our pack, and let's run down the voltages here, knowing our polarity is going to change. 4.1, 4.1, 4.1, 4.1, and 4.1. So they're all within the 4.1. One's 4.7, the others. So now this pack is a lot closer. We're going to throw this thing into service, and we'll leave this sticker on it here so that we know it's the one we played around with. And if it gets out of tolerance again, we'll see if there's issues with cells. We can replace cells if we need to, but for now I think we're going to go with this. Say this one's ready to go back into service, and we'll see if we have any further issues with it. So I hope this was interesting. If you get some of these weird anomalies, I believe it has to do with low voltage in the cells. If you can get them balanced with a power supply or something like that, again, being very careful to bring up the current slow and monitor everything while you're doing it. Have all your proper firefighting equipment around and do everything on a rubber mat. But it does seem like you can save these cells and packs if you balance things out. It's always worth a shot. If you get into something else and it seems like it's shorted, don't force power into shorted cells. They may catch on fire. So that's why we had a means of monitoring temperature, and that goes a long way with all this. So anyway, standard disclaimers aside, I hope this was interesting. I think we got something good here going with this pack again, and we'll throw it into service and see how it does. As always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.